There were people literally blowing lines of on the desk. If these dumbasses can make it in mortgage, if this is the bar, I can for sure be here.
You just have this heart for education, really empowering people to make really sound financial decisions.
I can't even tell you how many women who make six figures have no idea where their money goes. Huge mistake. If you're spending every dollar, you will have no room for opportunity. That label of being a bitch. I struggle with that because I feel like I'm a good person who cares.
I'm a good bitch.
I'm a good bitch.
I don't think I understood how traumatic divorce is until I was in it. Your certainty that it was going to be okay in so many of those darker moments really carried me through. If someone really wants to radically change their financial future in the next 12 to 18 months, what are the 3 easiest first steps you would have them do?
I would have them
One of the most requested topics on the Powerhouse Women podcast is always money, because I think there is this desire within us all to understand how to build true wealth. And I am joined today by one of, I think, the most brilliant women when it comes to money, investing, wealth, leveraging real estate to build wealth. It's my friend Lizy Hoeffer. She is a top mortgage broker, one of the top, I need to make sure I say this right, the #1 female loan officer. She was voted in 2018, no big deal, by the Scotsman guide. And what I love about her is how she really has this education-focused approach. I think money, for me, I'll speak personally, can be intimidating, and it makes me not even want to ask questions. She just completely removes any of the intimidation, and we get into some very real topics, including how to prepare yourself if you're going to go through a divorce process, how to prepare yourself as a business owner in order to reach some of your big financial goals. So no more being afraid of talking money. We are talking all about it, and really about how ambitious women just like you can build real wealth. All right, my friends, we are talking money today, and I have my friend Lizy Hoeffer as a guest. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome officially to Powerhouse Women.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. So when I think about, one of the topics that is most requested is to just understand money and wealth and things that, if I think about how I was raised, I didn't have women in my life talking about the importance of financial education or anyone to mirror to me that it was possible. Were you someone who grew up with financial models of success, specifically as a woman? Your face indicates no.
I mean, it's a complex question because I was raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs, and my mom is brilliant. And she's also really tough. And I learned a lot from her. So, I mean, she's the kind of person that was going to do whatever it took to put food on the table. But I also never wanted to be in her position where she had to work 2 jobs. It was a crisis that my dad didn't pay child support. And I felt like I held a lot of judgment towards her. And it was a lot of the motivation I had when I started working about what I was going to want for myself in my future with money.
Yeah. One of the reasons I especially wanted to have you on is you are a super successful woman in your field. You're just a successful person in your field. You just also happen to be a woman. One of the top mortgage brokers. You were named the #1 #1 female loan officer in the US, NBD, in 2018. So I just say this to say, you're someone who I've always known as this successful woman, this financially successful woman, breadwinner in your relationship. And so I want to bring this to the table and really ground this conversation in either those who have these huge aspirations. They know that they want to be really financially abundant, no matter how their partner feels about that desire for wealth, but also to kind of bring this element of, to be a successful woman brings another layer to it of what society thinks, how that impacts partnership. So I just want to kind of ground it in this question to start. What are 3 of the biggest financial mistakes you think successful women make when it comes to our finances?
The biggest thing is that people think wealth is how much money you make. I can't even tell you how many women, specifically entrepreneurs who make six figures, have no idea where their money goes. They could tell you how much money they make, but they might not be able to tell you how much money they spend, what their rent is, utility bills. I mean, not knowing where your money goes is a huge mistake. The other thing is that a lot of women are scared of money. They don't want to learn about investments. They don't want to learn about things that they think are beyond them. And money is very taboo in just any circle. I don't care if you're male or female. In fact, most of the people who are triggered by because I always say I love money and money loves me back.
Yes.
And the most triggered people are typically men for whatever reason, and people who are very religious. I happen to be really religious. I don't think God has anything against money, and I just find that being scared, not tracking your money, thinking that your income is really where wealth comes from, those are the big mistakes.
Yeah. Ooh, that's so good, because it goes to show it's the tactical, what we're doing with our money, whether we're conscious of that or not, and the mindset, the beliefs that we hold, and how much power those can have over our earning potential, and then ultimately what we do with it. So I want to hear a little bit of like your journey to becoming this version of the successful business you have today. Is it true that you started out as a receptionist? Was it in a mortgage brokerage, or
yes.
How did you actually grow the book of business that you have today?
Well, I mean, that's like 20 years worth.
I know, it's like, just consolidate 20 years down into, a 2-minute soundbite.
I think the biggest thing for me is I hated being poor growing up. I literally hated it. I don't think anything bothered me more. And not just because we were poor. It was just all of the things we had to say no to, the stress, the struggle, the constant like feeling less than. I just remember it was like a chip on my shoulder I always had. And when I got to college, I remember thinking like the biggest goal I had was just get to college without realizing how expensive it was. And in the first semester, I realized I only had enough money to stay there for one semester. And in order for me to figure it out, I was going to have to find money somewhere. And so I started applying for all the unclaimed scholarships. I looked in the newspaper for the highest paying job I could find. And it happened to be as a receptionist at a mortgage company, and paid $10 an hour. And I was like, score double digits.
I remember my first internship was $10 an hour. I thought I had struck gold.
I mean, double digits 20 years ago. It's like, it was gold. Yeah. I mean, you could live off of $400 a month if you were in a dorm room,
It's so true. Okay. So was that what sparked the interest to get into the industry? Were you exposed to what that industry could offer and it just sparked something inside of you? Or what made the connection to you deciding to pursue that? Because that's a lot of education. You're truly building a business from the ground up in that field.
So it was a twofer. So the biggest bill in our household was this 9% mortgage that was such a struggle to pay.
Gosh, yeah.
And it was a constant topic in our family. Like seriously, the thing my parents thought about the most, and it was always like my mom felt like the mortgage broker at the time was taking advantage of them. My dad was like, I don't know, he had some story about why the mortgage made sense. It was such a hard thing to pay. And I remember and not understanding the concept of being house poor, but really understanding that the mortgage was the big crux in the budget. And so when I went to go work there, one of the big aha moments I had, I remember thinking like it was so prestigious. I was working in this mortgage company. And then quickly it was like the Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh gosh.
I'm not even joking. I mean, they had lunch at the strip clubs every night, and there were people literally blowing lines of Coke on the desk. And I was shocked. These were the people that gave us the 9% mortgage. And I'm like, if these dumbasses can make it in mortgage, I definitely can. And I know I was like 19 at the time, but I was like, if this is the bar,
right,
I can for sure be here. And one day this guy handed me a big stack of dead leads. And he's like, I'm going to need you to shred these. And I remember being like, well, what if I don't shred them? Like, what if I call them for free? You don't have to pay me,
Yeah.
but I'm going to stay here and I'm going to call these. And if I convert them, will you pay me $50 an application? And again, my hourly rate was $10, and being able to double, maybe triple my income was huge. Right. And so the guy was like, sure. And I quickly would book appointments.
Wow.
My dad was a good salesperson. I had been selling things since I was a little kid. I mean, I had a rock shop, and then I got myself a little place to swap meet. I mean, I have always been a hustler. But one thing that I will say that from my childhood and having all those entrepreneurial experiences is I realized where you can take advantage of an opportunity. And like getting dead leads and putting in the time is the opportunity that changed my entire life. And then getting to talk to the people who are like my mom and dad, who really didn't know a whole lot about finances, their budget, mortgages. I realized good people have to be in positions like that to help other people. And so for me, it became a passion project, you know, talking to enough people, you really want to help them. And I've committed my entire professional career to real estate and mortgage. For that reason. Yeah.
And this makes so much sense, connecting the dots to the version of you that I know, because my favorite thing about you, and as an outside observer, what I would say to people if I'm introducing you at a party is the reason you're successful, you take such an education forward approach. You can tell how much you really care about empowering people to understand how their financial decisions impact, in your case, the industry you're in, their ability to buy a home. You can feel it. You can feel that energy. And I think when we talk about sales, it's another topic that a lot of women can be a little bit, I say women only because that's the people who I mentor, but it can feel like this taboo topic of, I don't want to feel salesy. I don't want to push people. There was this line you just said. It's like there needs to be good people who really give a shit in positions to help people make a decision that's impacting their life in some way. In this case, buying a home.
Well, people think of salespeople as manipulators.
True.
Like, I'm not out here trying to convince you or trick you into buying a house. I truly believe that buying a home is essential for building wealth.
Yes.
And in order for you to understand that type of investment, you have to understand the principles of money and why it makes so much sense. There we go. You know, and what's hard is, like, my mom always thought that these mortgage brokers ripped them off. That was her big thing. And now that I work in the field, I understand that my dad's credit probably wasn't great. They probably needed alternative documentation because my dad was an entrepreneur. They had a lot of risk when it came to getting a home. And because my mom was able to own that home and own it for 20 years, it was also the thing that got her out of poverty.
Yes.
And while it was frustrating and difficult and we made tons of sacrifices, that's the kind of leverage that somebody who is working 2 jobs with 4 kids, she would never have been able to save that herself.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's the kind of education you have to teach people right away, right? When, you know, everyone's like, oh, my big dream is to own a house, but they don't understand that owning a house is your very first big financial investment.
Yes. Yeah. Gosh, you're making me flash back to, so one of the things I remember feeling so much pride in was buying my first home by myself before I was married, engaged, at 25 years old. Now, it was a very different time because that was 2009. Very different rates, very different, you know, there were programs for first-time home buyers, but it was because of someone who educated me. Someone who said, hey, do you know that the same amount you're paying in rent, you could put toward a home? There are these programs for first-time home buyers. I think, you know, thinking about the market then, even in terms of the market now, where it was just more challenging coming out, like we were in that recession.
Super scary. A lot of people just foreclosed. Yes. Like the fact that you even bought a home at 25 then is really brave of you.
Yeah.
Most people are running away from it.
Or just I was delusional enough to not know, you know, to not know the things to be afraid of. I also bought a really conservative, I think it was like $150,000 home. It was like something well within my budget. But I just think back to the power of that education and then the power of that compounding. I mean, that home allowed us, you know, several years later, as I was married and we're looking to like have more space, you know, I just look at how much leverage owning real estate really gave me. And I could have easily missed that, you know, that opportunity. I want to kind of speak to the person who the woman who's listening who maybe has a goal, a dream in the next 1 to 2 years to be in a position to consider home ownership, and we can speak to how differently you'd have to plan if you're in a 2-income household versus not. What are the top 3 tips you would give to someone who wants to be in a financial position to consider purchasing a home in the next 1 to 2 years? How can they start preparing for it now?
So it typically takes people 6 months to 18 months to just ready themselves. So I would say talk to a mortgage loan officer, get your credit run. People are fearful of getting their credit run because they hear that it hurts their score, but you have to have your credit pulled 6 times for application to credit for it to even impact it. And it's like the lowest denominator in the whole algorithm. So it's really just a urban legend that manipulative salespeople use to try to get you not to shop. But I would say get your credit run because you really have to understand where that is going to be in order to get the right loan programs. And then you want to talk to them about your budget. What can you afford? How much money do you have to save for the payment that you want? And then how much is it going to cost you outside of down payment, like closing costs, inspection fees, repairs, right? And really start saving for that. And so I will say that most people can save all the money that they need, even utilizing down payment assistance and stuff, somewhere between 6 months and 3 years, right? The 3-year mark is really like if you're saving every penny, but most people with tax refunds and savings, and most people can locate $300 in their budget, seriously, and start setting it aside for a house.
Like every month, an extra $300.
Yes.
Yeah.
People are spending this on all kinds of food. I mean, it's like $1,700 is the average, like eating out per month. I mean, the money is there.
I just thinking about how one of my commitments this year, and as I'm transitioning into a new phase of my financial future and just wanting to bring some more awareness because it's so powerful. I'm tracking all my spending. I'm looking at credit card statements, and it's nothing eye-opening, but like I'm smiling because you're like, oh, it's there. It's absolutely there.
The money is always there. And even if you don't, let's say you don't make the money today, that same thing that I use to get myself from being a receptionist to becoming an assistant to becoming a loan officer, that always exists. So you're either an asset to a company or you're a liability. A liability shows up, does their job. You're part of payroll. But an asset figures out how to make the business more money, saves them money, right? Makes them more efficient. And if you are somebody that can figure that out for wherever you work, you can always ask for more money.
Yeah.
The money is there.
I mean, not even to mention all the opportunities in like the gig economy. And I think that every time, now I'm just putting myself on blast, that, the portion of my budget that is dedicated to DoorDash, I love to, this is such a weird thing, maybe because I love an entrepreneur, but I love to like just kind of have that moment where they hand you your food and I'm like, I just want to know what the story is. Like, what are you saving for? Like, what are you, because
there are people that straight up want to do this as their full-time gig because they can do lots of other things.
Right. There's just so many opportunities, I guess is what I'm speaking to. I'm like, that just sounds like I have like a spiritual connection with my DoorDash driver, but I think I just have such respect for people who are willing to hustle for it, and like you said, really take those extra steps to put them in a better position financially. So thank you. Shout out to all the DoorDash drivers. Let's stay on this theme of savings because you're so passionate about this. You're actually developing an entire app based around this idea of that we can all find an extra few $100 a month. Okay. I want you to speak to this budgeting process that you've taught your clients, you've developed and then share a little bit of how it's evolved into an app. But let's start with like the budgeting fundamentals. Is it as simple as just looking through our spending and putting that somewhere else? Or do you find that that's not enough? Awareness isn't enough to get people to commit to the habit?
So the thing is that people will only make change when it makes sense for them. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be financial, it could be fitness, it could be whatever. When it makes sense for you, you'll make a move. But what I do find is that people don't have a good roadmap. And so I read this book a long time ago called The Richest Man in Babylon. And it was about a roadmap to success. And it was basically, if I could manage my lifestyle within 70%, I have 30% to apply to other things. So in the book, it talks about applying 20% to debt reduction and 10% to savings. And I did that for a long time until I had no more debt. And then I'm like, okay, well, what else? And then I had to learn about other money strategies when it came to the 30%. And I just think that people one, they don't believe that they have the extra money. That's the number one. They don't believe that that the goal is attainable no matter what. And so people don't even try. And so the budget system was like, okay, well, let me just show you very quickly how much money you're actually spending on things that aren't your minimum debts. And let me show you that if you just put down $200 to $300, what that looks like with 2 years of tax refunds for a budget for a house. And when you can start showing people that, you know, if they buy a $400,000 house, their cash investment is returned 100% within like 1 to 2 years. There's no other investment that grows at the value of the asset itself and not just your cash investment. And that is how people are able to leverage real estate to get very wealthy. And for me, I have very specific strategies about how I want to leverage that. And I do other things other than just do real estate too. But I think that it has to start with, where is your capacity for opportunity? If you're spending every dollar, you will have no room for opportunity.
That's so good. So what inspired the vision for creating the app? Was it because you saw the success of this method and you wanted to make it more, I feel like we're such a phone-centric society. I don't know that much about the app. I haven't gotten to see the interface yet because I know it's coming soon, but tell us a little bit about that story.
So, I mean, the app is really just speed, right? So sitting here and being able to do a budget with you takes a really long time. Like I have to go through all your bank statements. We have to go through all your credit. I mean, you have to commit to filling out the budget sheet. And so I would see a lot of attrition with people who just couldn't even do step one.
Yeah.
And I wanted an app that would very quickly show you, here's all of the money you're spending on things that we could apply to other things. And then if I was your real-time accountability partner and we set this goal, now I have a method for keeping track. And when you keep track of things, that's when things change and grow. It's like, you know, we're made up of electrons, right? And electrons only function if you're observing. It's the same thing with any type of goal. If someone is paying attention, you will do it.
I think about all those years that I spent like really committing to my fitness. And the moment I had to write down my meals for my trainer, this is when I was doing like actual fitness shows where I was tracking more. It was like, I definitely thought twice about that glass of wine or the thing that, it's not that the thing is bad or spending additional money on eating out is bad. It's just, does it align with the goal that I ultimately want? Which do I want more, the short-term gratification or the long-term gain?
Well, I always ask myself, what's this going to cost me? And I never want a cost to be a big goal or dream. Like, I don't want to be the reason I didn't do something. And I find that the things that I regret or the things I feel the most sadness about or things that I caused myself.
Say more about that. What's an example?
Oh my God. Well, the last 3 years have been this exploration of codependency. But I realize that a lot of the personal chaos that I've had in anything has all been a result of this short-term gain to stop pain in the moment without realizing the bigger implications of how it causes me all kinds of chaos. And codependency is seen in like your spending. It's actually seen in your relationships. It's how I've performed as a boss, how I was as a spouse. I mean, how I am as a mom. I mean, it's everywhere. And I mean, I've been in this phase of like healing and just really focusing on it for a long time. But a week ago, I had this moment in business where I was like, I am doing this to myself. I allow these things to happen repeatedly, and I choose not to do anything about it because I like this person. And this is my choice to continue to live this way. And I'm complaining about the long hours I'm working, and I'm complaining about the extra stress I have. No one's required to work here. I'm not. And we all have these choices. But sometimes this is like where I still have a lot of work to do. I do actually care about that label of being a bitch. Like that has always been something that has, you know, as a strong woman who very ambitious, and I'm also very direct. I struggle with that because I feel like I'm a good person who cares.
I'm a good bitch.
I'm a good bitch. But it's like this thing. I also still want to be liked. And when you have big goals, it doesn't matter in business, money, anything, that being liked, like, I don't know, that trigger for me is just the crux of all of my chaos.
Yes. Oh, that's so resonant. And it makes me think of, there was this podcast I heard over the course of this last year. And I've also been on this healing journey. And the podcast was discussing how everything you said, how we'll use this example of codependency, that pattern shows up not just in relationships. I think that's where we see it. We hear it talked about. The podcast was making the point that the same places where we see triggers and challenges show up in love, our relationships, it shows up in money. That the energy between love and money is so similar. And it actually gave me such powerful insights into my patterns with money, because I was digging so deeply into my patterns in relationships. It had me start to ask. So for example, let's just maybe phrase it this way. What are some examples of how you mentioned codependency? I can see how that shows up in relationships. How does that show up in my relationship with money? What's an example?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's hard for me to say no. Like if people ask to borrow money, or they try to sell money, or like subscription services of things I don't need because it's my friends' businesses.
Yeah.
Or it'll be like, for instance, we have this quota to meet, and when we don't hit the quota, you don't get your bonus. But feeling so badly about people not getting their bonuses is this other constant tug. And the thing is, it's like you pay one thing out without realizing that if your P&L is negative, you also then have to let these people go. And this clarity that I've had recently is like, I take everything so personal. It's like, you tell me your story, it's now my mission to help you. But the thing is, it's not my life. These are not my finances. This is not my credit. This is not my house I'm going to move into. I mean, there has to be boundaries. At some point, I'm just the person trying to help you with your home loan. Like, we can be friendly, but we're not friends. And that, I know that sounds crazy, but that aha moment just happened for me recently with everything. I was like, oh my God, we're friendly. We're not friends. Like, why am I like willing to donate my kidney?
Yes.
Like,
you haven't actually done that, have you? Not yet. No one has asked. That's probably why.
No one's asked. But can I just tell you, it feels that way. It does feel that way a lot for me.
I think it's so powerful for you to share that as someone who has created the successful business that you've had, and just sharing so honestly about the places where healing is still having such an impact on you. It's this journey that never ends. But I think I notice myself putting women who are successful on a pedestal, thinking they've kind of just checked off these healing boxes, and maybe it just ends at some point, when I think it's this journey that just continues to deepen. And I feel that so much from you as well.
I think what happens is that we're good in one area, and that's the area that we're measured in everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of like that same, when I said, I don't want to be known as the bitch, but that is what has kept me super safe. Like, I do struggle with codependency, and thank God I was such a bitch, because people wouldn't ask me for all these things. It's also the thing that has also rescued me. It's like when I've been tough and been able to negotiate, and maybe I was scared and very nervous and very intimidated, but that persona that I could walk into has helped me out so much too.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I know there are so many of you listening who resonate with that. It's almost like this shadow word of, if I assert my needs, will I be labeled as a bitch, or will I be labeled as unkind, or whatever that is for you? How big of a hold that can have on us, and how it spills over into every single area of life.
I mean, I would definitely say that the biggest pain point in all of my relationships has been that underlying, I want to be liked.
Yeah.
I don't want them to abandon me. Am I really a bad person? I mean, and all of that comes from like childhood trauma, but it's interesting because I do feel like business Lizy is this person I walk into, and then real Lizy is like who I get to come home to. And they're very different.
Yeah, I feel that. I think a lot of people feel that. I really like you.
Thanks. Ditto.
You were such a resource for me this last year. I'm like going to get emotional. I don't think I understood how traumatic divorce is until I was in it. And I was in it so suddenly. I wasn't thinking about it over months and months and months. It was sort of like a decision point where I had to snap out of a lot of unhealthy relationship patterns of enabling certain things. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, a line was crossed. And now I know I'm going to be moving this direction. And our mutual friend, Aisha, I knew you. I looked up to you. I consumed your content. I would even watch your videos about like how women should prepare themselves financially to buy a home after divorce. I was like, oh, it's so great she's creating this content for people. But the moment that I went into action mode, which is very much my survival strategy, you were one of the first people I talked to. And you just so calmly spoke to, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's just some things you need to know. And it wasn't from this place of fear or you got to protect, I was in such a protective mode of like, oh my gosh, like, okay, now what does this look like financially, like much less emotionally? And I don't know if I'll ever have the words to tell you how much your certainty that it was going to be okay and I was going to get to the other side, just in so many of those darker moments, really carried me through, because the emotional trauma of the situation was then compounded by, you're essentially separating a life that you've built with someone. And I didn't realize, because none of us go into marriage thinking we're going to ever cross that bridge, but I didn't realize the impact it has on a woman who's the breadwinner. I didn't realize the impact it has on you as a business owner, because I don't have a W-2 income. So when I went to even get a rental, I had to show 18 times the monthly rent just sitting in cash in my bank account. There were all these little things that I just wasn't financially prepared for because I wasn't educated. And luckily I was able to, to find my way through. But I just think I don't want to be afraid to share with women some of the things I just wish I would have known. And this is maybe for those of you who know you're going to be going through a relationship transition, or you don't, but I want you to file it away just to know. And I'm going to have you just maybe speak to, if you could speak to Lizy before you went through your divorce, what are just 3 things you would have wanted to prepare her for or prepare her with financially before going into that process? What would you have wanted her to know?
So my divorce was really simple in the fact that I knew up front that the law is you split everything. Mm-hmm. So I have a really amazing mentor. His name's Rick. And he told me right away, you've now lost half your assets. So you have to make peace with that right away. There was a moment where I tried to negotiate with my ex-husband. And if you know my ex-husband, you already know what that was like. And so it was awful. Mm. I realized that this was just going to be the way that it was. And I was just going to have to make peace with it right away, no matter how angry I felt. Because in my marriage, my ex-husband literally read and watched TV all day, and I worked all of the hours. And we're talking about 80-hour weeks, very little time for maternity leave. I mean, I blood, sweat, and teared this business. And our assets were off of the back of my hard work. And it's not like, sometimes where, most women end up being like the homemakers. This is not the case. Like I had a full-time nanny. And so I had a lot of reason to feel extremely resentful over the money. Mm-hmm. And so the thing that I would have told myself is I did not track my money in my marriage. A lot of because of codependency. I didn't want to start fights. Yeah. If I had a question about where the money was going, it always led there. And I never wanted to fight. And so my biggest rule about money is you got to know where every dollar is. And I did not know where every dollar is. Had I known that, my divorce negotiations would have been different. Mm-hmm. There would have been a point in time too, because I think you kind of know when your relationship is dysfunctional. I think, yes, you were blindsided. Yes, I felt blindsided. And I always knew it was wrong.
I think there were things that in hindsight, you just see very differently.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like, I should have accounted for, we should have had monthly meetings. letting go of that money piece right away. Thank God that was such a gift. Like just parting ways with it, knowing that it was gone. I split everything right away.
Yeah.
You can do that in a divorce. I would not pay all of the legal fees to keep things going. It is 50-50 in most states, especially in Arizona. So parting ways with the money, getting a budget together for myself was really essential. I did a lot of things right financially. I probably would have waited, looking back, to buy something, because I think I made an emotional purchase when I did.
Buying a home on the other side.
I just wanted to own something that was my own. And it was more of an emotional purchase than it was strategically an investment.
Yeah.
So I might have waited, but I did a lot of things right. So get your credit pulled, figure out where all your assets are, pull up 12 months worth of all your bank statements to figure out where all your cash is gone. It's a very emotional time. So I understand most people don't want to do this. I also would save all of your emotional stories for your friends and not your attorney. That's one thing that will save you a bunch of money if you're going the attorney route. I can't tell you.
You're paying them by the hour. Yeah. By the minute,
but
actually.
So many women, we want to talk about what happened to us. I mean, it's been 2 years and I finally just said the thing I just said about mine. Like I just never said it, but here's what I would say. Like divorce is very painful. It's traumatic in every single which way that you can think of, financially, emotionally. I mean, I lost like literal chunks of my hair. Like that's how stressful. It impacts every level of your life. And I would never be divorced had I asked different questions when I was dating. And it's, again, when I said all roads lead back to codependency, I didn't ask the hard financial questions about, can I see your tax returns? Right. I had seen a credit report because we had qualified for a house, but I didn't really know the intricacies of his finances or his business. I didn't have any value over what I brought to the table. Like I had a very long job history with an income that was already 6 figures. I had my own money. And when you're going into any kind of contractual partnership, because that is what marriage is, you have to look at, is this the right business partner? Is this the person that's going to wake up in the middle of the night with me? Is this the person that wants to vacation the same way that I do? Is this the kind of person that when the going gets tough is willing to make the same sacrifices? And what's interesting is we do it in business. There's a whole phase of discovery and it's just appropriate. And as a woman, I just never, I don't know. I mean, I was like, okay, I'm going to base my entire financial future on someone's potential with 0 results. It sounds insane to do, but you're willing to do it in your 20s. Yeah. I don't know. Sorry, that was a long tangent.
No, that actually was perfect because like bonus dating advice. You're welcome. And I think we're just in this era where, and I don't want to make this at all about like men versus women. It's not about that. There are so many brilliant women whose earning potential is growing far beyond their partner. And I think it's just important to know so that you're empowered with how that can impact things in the future. And that piece about emotionally detaching from what you feel is fair or right immediately so that you can just go into a process of, essentially you're going into a business conversation about how do we separate the assets. And it doesn't matter if they were primarily off of your hard work. In most states, unless there's a prenuptial agreement of some kind, that is the reality. And I remember so many of our conversations just really helped me to separate the emotion from just the what is. And then I remember hearing about some celebrity divorce that was like 6 years in. And I just remember feeling the weight of that on my body and also realizing I don't want to, for him or for me, keep that energy attachment any longer than we need to. Money is like a renewable resource. I can always earn more. So I think that helped me to be really grounded in discussing it, although there were these emotions, very personal emotions attached to it.
And the thing is, the quicker you let go of the money, for real, the emotions to that money, the quicker you can move on.
Yeah.
Because it took me a second too. Like I wasn't just like, we decided to divorce. Then there was a period where we tried to work on it. Then we separated again. Then there was another period. I mean, it's hard. You have 3 kids.
Yes. Yeah.
But once I made that commitment to just be done, it was like all of a sudden I could focus all of my energy on just building what was new.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I rarely go backwards and
Mm-hmm.
think about it. Like if I think about it, it's because unfortunately we still have ongoing legal stuff, and people, this is the other thing, like you want that to be done because how much energy does it rob you when you see the mediator or the attorney's email?
Well, and from the standpoint of if you're listening to this and you are an entrepreneur, I realized right away the real currency is my energy. My business took a big hit last year because my energy was so consumed with everything happening. So I knew I had, again, I think that this higher self that could see it from a bird's eye view and realize nothing is worth investing more energy than I need to, while also advocating for myself and, doing all the things as a smart businesswoman. But our energy is our biggest currency.
You can't show up for work. You can't show up to make more money. You can't show up for your friend. I mean, it's just all of the things. And like the one phrase that got me through everything is like, my freedom is priceless.
Ooh.
Like this is about your freedom. Like people pay whatever to be free.
Yeah. There have been some great pieces of content you've put out over the last year that I've seen. Again, when I was watching them, like, oh, how cute for those other people. But speaking to,
I know, isn't that so funny? I was watching divorce content before I realized it applied to me.
I would think about when our mutual friend Aisha was on her healing journey talking about codependency. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting for you and your relationship. And then it comes knocking at your door. But about just the very practical things that someone should be prepared with financially if they are either in a divorce process and wanting to set themselves up to be able to buy a home in the future, or like I said, even just as a self-employed person, not realizing, oh, the income I'm going to have to show. It was as simple as I didn't realize that if the money was sitting in my business bank account, it didn't count toward what they want. It was my money, but it didn't count for what they needed in terms of like to show income qualification. Just these little things that I just didn't know and didn't have a reason to know.
So that is one thing I will say for most entrepreneurs, because I do meet with a lot of small business owners. Your business account is not your personal account. Yes, those are assets, but unless they're transferred or paid out to you, they don't count as income. It's just your balance sheet.
Yep.
And so if you want to qualify for a home loan, you have to have taxable income that we can document. Otherwise, you're going to use alternative sources like bank statements and pay higher interest. And so you really want to make sure that, again, this is like why I always recommend talking to a financial planner, talking to an accountant, talking to a mortgage loan officer. So that way you can get a good idea and then make sure that they're all talking to each other. Because your CPA is going to have different goals for you than your loan officer, than your financial advisor. But you have to collectively have a team that understands your goals. Yes.
So good. Okay. So as we're starting a new year, when people hear this, maybe we're a few months into the year.
I would have them reconcile their entire budget for 3 months. So account for every single dollar on a bank statement and a credit card, and just see where all the money's going. And then I would look at that spending and go, can I consolidate this into 70% of my net take-home income? And if you cannot live the life that you want to live, where are there other opportunities for you to make money? And quickly, as an entrepreneur, because I do home loans, but I've also sold coaching, I've sold programs, I've sold my marketing that I've done for like classes. I mean, you can basically make money and like reselling the things you've already done.
Yeah.
The money is there. You just have to find it. So I would look at, okay, if I can't live off 70%, how much more money do I need? And or what biggest debt can I pay off to open up cash flow? Once you can figure out cash flow, everything changes. It resets all of your energy. Like in business, if I'm having a low month in business, my very first thing is to figure out cash flow for me, because the second I feel good about my money situation, the better I am in everything.
So good.
So I would focus on your budget. I would focus on areas where you can figure out more money now or reduce debt. And then I would start applying it to a big financial goal.
That's so
and if
good.
It's not owning a house, right? Like it's like, what stocks are you going to be investing in? how are you going to start leveraging things that grow with interest, not just a savings account?
So it's like balancing it with having a vision for the future that almost gives you like the dopamine hit every time you put a little bit of money toward that. Because I get a dopamine hit when I 100%. Send that money to DoorDash. So replacing that. But then the very practical of starting with tracking where it's all going. I mean, none of this is new, right?
Buy things you don't know. Like, I can't tell you the number of people that have bought cryptocurrency because they think they've heard that that's the thing to buy and they have no idea why investing in currency might not make sense for their financial plan.
Yeah.
Like, you actually have to learn this stuff, and it's very easy, especially with AI. Like, you can ask ChatGPT infinity questions until you get it. There's books, there's podcasts, but I would not invest in anything that you don't understand.
That's so good. Part of the reason why I'm not invested in crypto at all.
Well, people have no buy box. So I have a yes or no box. So it's like what I'm going to say yes to in business, what I'm going to say yes to with money. And it has to make sense for my financial future. So like in investing, I want something that grows in equity, so value, and I want something that can cash flow. So real estate is perfect because it appreciates in time, and you can also rent out rooms. You could rent out the house, right? So it can cash flow, right? Dividend paying stocks appreciate and cash flow. And so a currency like crypto, it just appreciates. So it gets more and more valuable, which makes you less inclined to ever use it.
So good.
It's just, that's why, I mean, you have to know about an investment, and does it make sense for your overall goals?
You just have this way, and it goes back to what I was acknowledging you for earlier, of just this heart for education, for really empowering people with the knowledge to make really sound financial decisions. And it's like, I want to reframe the part of you that worries, am I being too direct? Does this make me a bitch? It's like, everyone needs this friend. Everyone needs the friend that's like, girl, we got to get this together. So for people who want an internet bestie who's just going to shoot it straight, where can people find you? When does the app come out, and what's it called?
So it's called Smart Sense, but smart and then CENTS.
See what she did there?
Yeah. And it's in testing right now. So depending on how long that takes, but it should be out next year, which I'm really excited about. You'll have to find it through a loan officer, preferably this one. And then, but it'll be great. And it'll help a lot of people realize how quickly they can purchase.
So smart.
And then all the rest of my stuff is on YouTube or Instagram. I have kind of a funny name. It's Lizy with 1 Z.
It's just concise and to the point, just like you.
I know. It's a bit autocorrects to lazy. Oh my God.
Oh, that's an unfortunate autocorrect situation for sure.
So I have the most unfortunate name. Do we have time for a 2-minute tangent?
Of course we do.
Okay. So my last name is Hoeffer, also confused for heifer. And I had a foreign math teacher, and in college, he would take attendance by yelling your name out, and you'd have to go collect your homework or your test. And so he would call me Lazy Heifer.
I just saw where that was going.
Every freaking time. I never collect. I failed the class because part of it was attendance. I was like, I'm never collecting my stuff.
Who's going to raise their hand for that name?
No one. So thank you, Mom and Dad, for the additional trauma.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's end on a high note, because that is quite traumatizing. No matter what age you are, that would be traumatizing to me as an adult. I love to end with this question and just this opportunity to acknowledge yourself, because I know it's something I'm always working on. I'm not great at it. And we just call it a powerhouse moment. It can literally be anything big or small that comes to mind when I say, what's a recent powerhouse moment that you really want to acknowledge yourself for? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
So the first thing that comes to mind is my 9-year-old daughter said she wanted to be a businesswoman like me.
My heart.
I know it. Literally, we were in the pool. It was over the summer, and it just has stayed with me every single time. I'm showing up to be a boss, Yeah. She was like, Mom, I really want to be a boss like you. I want to make money, and I want to learn about how to buy a house, and I want to learn about how to run a business. I want to be just like you. And I'm like, and the funniest thing about that is I would never have aspired for my kids to be like me when they grow up. I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to be? An architect, a fashion designer. and it really is like they learn to be adults, learn to be humans through us. And so it's so cool to have my little mini me want to be a
Penny.
I know.
Oh my goodness. Well, I also want to be like you when I grow up, even though we're like the same age. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.